No one knows what the future holds, but if a new house is in your future, I can help from a safe distance. I'm Nick Acosta, your downtown expert, and I'm hosting safe and sanitary open houses. Nothing is different except for temperature checks at the door and masks are required. But it still smells like there are fresh baked cookies in the oven. So come on by one of my safe and sanitary open houses, and I'll say welcome home from 6 feet away.
This is Home2All, an all-inclusive real estate podcast with your host, Nicholas Acosta. Nick sits down with guests to talk about real estate and how it works. Reach him at downtown.expert on Facebook and Instagram, or his website, www.downtown.expert, or call or text him at 407-508-8809. Enjoy the episode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nicholas Acosta, Friday, June 4th, 2021, coming to you live from St. Petersburg, Florida. This is Home2All, all-inclusive real estate podcast. Of course, I've got Mike Synthetic from Blanchard Insurance on with me, and then we also have Josh Rivera from Burns & Wilcox joining us to talk about cyber liability today. Welcome both to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for having us.
No worries. So, let's go on this first Friday, I guess, of the month of June. Let's go ahead and start talking about cyber liability and what to look out for out there in this new world that we live in.
And I'll introduce Josh. Josh is actually one of our partners over at Burns & Wilcox, who is one of our underwriters who helps us out with a lot of our cyber liability risks through different companies like Coalition, to name one, who your insurance is with, Nick. So it's great to have him on here. He's kind of an expert more so than I am in this field. It's great to have him on here. So I'm going to let Josh introduce himself a little more.
Sure. Thanks. So I currently work with Burns & Wilcox. I've been doing professional liability for about a little bit over 9 years now. What professional liability is pretty much if you're offering some type of service, then it's the exposure for that you're offering. So, for example, real estate services, the errors and omissions for that. So under the professional liability umbrella falls the cyber. So cyber right now is just huge. It's one of the most robust policies right now in the market. The coverages are constantly ever changing. Enhancements are being added. Most companies right now are offering some type of cyber coverage. So some of them are offering a standalone cyber policy, or they're adding some kind of cyber enhancement to another portion of the policy. So if you have a standard GL policy, is general liability policy, they'll add some kind of cyber component just so that you can see that you do have that. It's something that, like I said, it's in the forefront. So we're seeing, the attacks on the pipeline. We're seeing the attacks on that meat market recently. So the carriers are capitalizing in that and making sure that all the insureds have coverage and are kind of understanding, that the carriers are trying to provide coverage for that.
What type of limits are you seeing on the standard general liability policy where they added as an enhancement, as you said, or to the typical business owner's policy? Let's say for like a title company or like a real estate office.
So with those enhancements, what they do is they'll add a sublimit. The sublimit can be anywhere from $25,000 and up. It's something that you really want to have your agent, really go through the wording for it. A lot of those that are just enhancements are what they call reimbursements. So if you do have some type of cyber loss, the $25,000 isn't upfront. It's something where you have to pay out $25,000 and then later on get reimbursed. So that's why I typically go ahead and tell my insureds it's way better off to just get a standalone policy of at least $1 million in limits and up. And that way you have that coverage. You don't have that reimbursement. It's, $1 defense. So you have that coverage from the get. You don't have to go ahead and dish out the money beforehand. A lot of the sublimits for these enhancements as well go from 25,000, 100,000, 150,000. But if you're having to pay that up front, You need to have that cash available, and if not, then it turns into an issue.
Yeah, and to add on to what Josh just said too, a lot of the coverage enhancements aren't going to be included in the sublimits. So they're not going to go out and have an active response to a cyber incident. So they're not going to have, like, for example, like Coalition has a whole program that's designed to recover data. They go up against ransomware attacks and whatnot. And it's what they're doing is like a lot of due diligence on the front end and the back end, unfortunately, if you do have a claim. So and as Josh was saying, when you just have it as an endorsement added on to your regular business owner's insurance, it's commonly just going to be like a reimbursement. There's not going to be a lot of bells and whistles, not a lot of support that is built behind that.
Right.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the coverage enhancements from something that's just endorsed on as opposed to a standalone policy. The main one is a cybercrime, which is what we're seeing right now in the news. So that cybercrime is huge, and usually for those endorsements that are just added on, they're not covering that. So that's another important fact to take into consideration when you're looking into getting the cyber.
Let me ask you a question about cyber, because this is a question I've always had. Is I know most of the risk in regarding to people actually working in your organization, and as everybody knows, the larger a small business or a medium-sized business becomes and it turns into a larger business, the more unfortunately the risk you're going to have is protecting yourself against sometimes your own staff. If you have it's pretty manageable if you have a staff of 50 or under, or 20 or under. When you get into a business as a staff of somebody like 200 people, it's hard to mitigate that risk because your risk, starts going through the roof. Now, does cyber liability protect a business from the crime that's internal, like some employee phishing and stealing data information, or is there something you need to add on top of that?
No, it does cover that. So that would be your first, that's your first party exposure right there. So you have someone within the office that's trying to, steal some type of information. That's first party, and that's definitely covered in a cyber policy. So, once your office starts getting larger and larger, that's when you start really focusing on having a carrier that offers classes that you can kind of request to make sure that the staff are taking, make sure that the staff know, what the exposures are with emails, with random links to start clicking on, make sure that the controls that you have within the company are being followed in case someone asks for a deposit. Make sure that, phone calls are being made to make sure that the person that's asking is really that person and not someone else. That's kind of what Nick was talking about earlier, was the phishing, is just making sure everything is actually, who that person is or who's requesting the information. But yeah, once it gets larger, and if you have someone within your company that's, trying to do the phishing itself, that's definitely a first party coverage.
And I think one of the things too, people, regardless of industry, and especially in the insurance industry, because I know there's we were talking about this a little bit last week, how especially in the insurance and real estate industry, there's a huge technology jump. The insurance industry has always been, lagging behind when it comes to technology. And as you've seen it too, Josh, in most recent years, we've made this huge jump to incorporating new technologies, new insurtechs, new ways of doing business. And the same thing on, where Nick is in the real estate world. And one thing I've noticed which is scary, is the incorporation of, virtual assistants or VA tech. And a lot of people think just because they go out and hire a virtual assistant, whether it's a company or whether it's an individual, and unfortunately on the insurance side, I see a lot of, of my peers and colleagues across the nation going out and hire some random virtual assistant in another country. And the thing that they negate is they think and they put their faith and their trust in that this person is, using a secure VPN, has virus, has their own cyber liability insurance. And in most cases, I would say 9 times out of 10, if not more, 99 times out of 100, they don't. And I look at that, and one of the questions I always ask is, do you have this VA on a secure VPN? What type of virus software are they using on their end? Yeah, you might want to buy cyber liability on your side, because guaranteed that's also, again, a huge risk. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, a lot of companies that aren't really doing their research when hiring a third party. They're not asking those important questions about, if they have their own coverage, if they have, their own controls in place. And that puts, themselves in jeopardy if there is a loss. So what happens is that if your third party company does have a breach or does have something where it, shuts their systems down, you want to make sure that your policy does cover the third party and does cover your business interruption. So what happens is that if that third party, if you're reliant on that third party, being up and running, and you're losing money because of it, then you want to make sure that you have that coverage within your policy.
And again, you said that's mostly available under the standalone cyber liability policies.
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely something that's been an enhancement for the standalone policies. Now, something that's just endorsed in as an enhancement, I'm very doubtful that companies are offering that.
Sure. And what type of industries are you seeing affected the most, across the board with a lot of, cyber liability attacks, cybercrime, ransomware?
Oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere right now. I mean, one of the most, probably one of the most vulnerable is real estate, just because, there's that transaction of money going across back and forth. You have people that aren't encrypting emails with routing numbers, bank account numbers. So that's definitely something that's a huge loss right now. I'm thinking, I think I read recently that the losses are, at least $230,000 and up, as far as an average. So yeah, but anything that's, if you're saving any kind of personal identifiable information, you have an exposure. And most of the time people just don't really realize that. They'll say, oh, I'm a small business, I have nothing to worry about. But
vulnerable.
Exactly. And I like to always use the Target example. Target had that loss, but it actually came from their HVAC company. So really? The HVAC company that handles their freezers actually left their door open. So the HVAC company had that breach, and someone had that back door into Target, and they got in. So that's an example of a smaller company creating a lot larger loss for a larger company.
Yeah. What are you seeing on the real estate side, Nick? Are you hearing about any other real estate agencies or brokerages running into some of these issues?
Well, good thing that we were talking about this today, because I got a phone call today before we did the podcast. Actually, a client of mine, and this happens a lot with brokerages, and this has happened to me before too, where either other real estate agent or other people out there on Facebook or Instagram that will try to pose as a real estate agent and steal your listing data so they can collect information on you, like, your name, because how we have those sites like KB Core, for example, inside real estate for a CRM, contact resource management. And so they try to pose as us, and this is happening more frequently, especially in the post-pandemic, and they duplicate your listing, put their name on it, they get you to click on it, and it steals their information. So we're having a lot of people that are trying to mimic us so they can get that contact information, so they can try to get in and break in to their system or into their record or their personal information. That is.
It's crazy. That's crazy. And I know we were talking about this pre-show. We were talking about this recently, and I'm not sure if everybody out there is really cognizant or knows about this, but a lot of states, especially in the insurance industry, and I think it's the same for the real estate industry, states like New York, I know, for example, South Carolina, probably California, definitely, and most recently I saw today, Louisiana are requiring, if you do business in those states and you hold some type of license, licensure in those states, you're actually required by a certain deadline to submit a cybersecurity plan. And the second caveat to that is if you do have a claim or have an instance or a breach where a residence in those states, personal information is stolen. I forget I think the threshold depends on which state you're in, but I believe New York was like if you have, I think it was like 1,200 or maybe 1,000 clients where their information has been compromised, you're required now by New York state law to actually contact the insurance Office of Insurance Regulation, I would assume, and it's whoever manages real estate law up there, or does that, probably their version of the DBR. You're required to actually report that to the state, and that's just a new law that's requiring. And as we were discussing, I probably see that coming to a lot more states. I think a lot of states are looking at it to see if it works or if it helps. And again, I mean, privacy has, just become a huge issue. What are your guys' thoughts on that? You see a lot more oversight coming down?
Yeah, Josh. Yeah, go ahead. You're good.
No, yeah, I was just gonna add to that the laws are becoming more and more robust as time goes on. States are requiring a lot more information from people that are storing information on their systems. So, something that the a standalone policy would cover is making sure that you're in compliance with whatever state the person resides in. So if you have, if you're holding information from someone in New York or in California, those two states are going to have different laws. So you're going to have to notify them within a certain time period, notify them by a certain time period. You're going to have to offer credit monitoring services. So all that is money out of pocket if you don't have a policy. So if you do have a policy, that's something that you can just call a 1-800 number, like Coalition. You have that 1-800 number you call, and they kind of just take everything from there. So, they'll send forensics in, they'll see where the loss was, whose information was stolen, what state they reside in, what laws you need to comply with. So it's something where all the states have different laws, and you just need to make sure that you follow that and not, cause some kind of suit towards you for not doing that.
That's actually good to know. And that's a great question, Nick. Because you're the real estate expert here. When you're talking about even going not just at the state level, but are there different requirements depending on counties in Florida?
Yeah, every county has a different set of rules, but I think it definitely needs to be a statewide thing. And then Josh, you're bringing up a good point that we do business. Well, we have my brokerage is registered in Florida. I only do business in Florida, but we do have people visiting from all over the country. So that just brings up a point where maybe down the road, we're going to have someone to oversight that we have to, if we know we're from another state, I guess we're going to have to comply with that state's law. If they were accessing my website, for instance, like let's say California or New York, and they go on my website, because I just got pinged also on the website in Sweden and India today. So do we have to follow regulations in that country or that state if their data is compromised in terms of their, cyber attack on our website? Because we, as real estate agents, we don't keep financial records of any type. Yes, we do get pre-approval letters, but they don't have any social security or identifying information. But we do have named email addresses and phone numbers. And that's still a golden ticket for cyber criminals out there. So so would that be something that maybe another state would hold me liable for if somebody got their stuff stolen from me in Florida and they live in California, looking at my site?
Yeah, that's something that you definitely should ask your, whoever holds your policy. So I think Mike mentioned that you have a coalition policy. So that's definitely something that you should call them and say, hey, listen, if this were to occur, whose laws would we have to follow? So my assumption is that you would have to follow wherever the person does reside in, whichever state they reside in. That would kind of give you an overview of what laws to follow and whatnot. But that's just an enhancement of why you should have a cyber policy, because all these rules you can't keep track of, which state, which laws to follow. it's something that, that's the added factor of having a standalone policy is you can pick up the phone, call someone and have that help right on the other side. So yeah, it's definitely something that people don't really think about today, as far as laws, notifying costs. Is it something that comes out of your pocket? Is something comes out of the limit? All these questions come up. So it's definitely something to look into and make sure that your policy is covering what you need.
And I know we were also talking, and this came up in pre-show, the subject of what's going on with, more regulation coming down with like can spam. And I know Nick will chime in here a second because he's taken a lot of classes on that. And most recently, and I'll talk about this afterward, is the new texting regulations are coming down. So Nick, what are some of the things you've learned about, can spam in regards to email soliciting and whatnot that you've seen and learned?
All right. So what I've gotten from my training experience and my experience as well is that when it comes to emails going out to potential buyers or sellers or advertising in general, all emails that are soliciting real estate business, that basically you have to follow that law or that rule, just like that law, like you do with the do not call registry. So you can get in just as much trouble as you would if you were to harass somebody by phone. And they're on the list as a do not call list. So in terms of the can spam, getting back to that again, that one, you have to have an option for them an opt-out option, and also have a notice at the bottom of disclosure saying that they have the right to opt out of this. And that if you opt out of it, obviously they have to put this in our training constantly, because I guess people, even though when a potential client or a client opts out of it, real estate agents and brokers will continue to override that and send emails again, which is a big no-no, as we all know. So they're taking it very seriously. I know you're going to get into the text messaging thing, but I think you're going to probably tell me something similar to that, or similar for us to hear on that. Because if you're out there and they unsubscribe to your email chain, please do not override that instead of sending them emails again, because you'll get in serious trouble if you do it, just like the do not call registry. Yep.
Yeah. A couple things I didn't notice when I was doing some additional research yesterday was, I think there's like 7 or 9 main points, that are out there on the web, and anybody can look it up. Just type in can spam. You can pull up, federal laws that regulate it. But the 3 points, or 3 or 4 points, I should say, that I really always pay attention to is, number one, yes, opt out, unsubscribe, any type of button giving the person to opt out of those communications. And this is mainly for prospects and new clients. It's harder for them to come against you if you have a relationship. If they've been a client for 10 years and you forget to send, an unsubscribe solicitation or whatnot, it's, that's not really that big of a deal. It's more so of, cold calling or prospects, if we can call them that. Now, the other couple things I noticed on there were identifying yourself as a legitimate person. So if I'm sending out an email to a prospect, I want to basically say, I am calling you from Blanchard Insurance. This is the intent of my email that I'm sending you to solicit insurance or whatever it may be. The other thing I noticed on there, yes, that's exactly right there, was location, that you have to have a legitimate location listing on contact. So Nick's got to show that he's got a brokerage in St. Pete or a brokerage in Orlando. I have to show that I have an insurance agency in Orlando, and I have to identify myself in the subject line. And, and then I think the fourth point on there that was, you can't disguise what you're doing. So if I'm trying to sell you insurance, I have to clearly state that. I can't say that, hey, my name is Mike, I just want information about your car or your home, and not say that I want to, get the insurance. So I think some of the, 3 or 4 main points on there are very important. And I see, there's a lot of attorneys out there who are getting a lot of people out there, but a lot of their prospects to kind of figure this out and, come back against you. Jumping and segueing over to the texting, I sit on a board of a technology company, and this, was kind of brought to our attention most recently, that some of the texting changes, and I forget what it is off the name of my head. You can probably look it up. It starts with an H, the new laws that are coming down, maybe HB or House Bill or whatever. But what's coming down is they are what is considered a business text and what is considered a personal text. So if Nick's going to send out soliciting text to me, it's no longer going to be treated like a personal text. It's going to be more scrutinized. I forget what they usually, it's like 140 characters, and you're going to have an opt-in, opt-out, which a lot of texting services too. But what really got me was the way that they're opening up the opportunity for the actual providers, like, your Verizon, your AT&T, and everybody else, to actually bill at a different level. So instead of billing at, what you would get on your average phone plan, they're going to be able to charge you a lot more money per text, and it's going to be highly regulated, from what I understand, coming down. Now, a lot of technology companies, you're not going to have to figure this out. A lot of yourself, a lot of the CRMs that people subscribe to, a lot of the AMS systems and whatnot are trying to figure this out on their end. So if you're in the insurance industry and you subscribe to, let's say, Applied or Hawksoft or somebody like that, they're already trying to figure it out because they have texting solutions through their own CRMs. And I would imagine the real estate world, it's the same thing. If you have a certain CRM system you're using, they're trying to figure that out because you're actually using their software to send out text. But it's really interesting. What I'm interested to see is what's going to come down in regards to the billables on that. So if you get unlimited texting on your personal phone plan, now are you going to be charged an extra $500 per month or $1,000 per month once the once the phone companies get to determine what those rates are? That's going to be interesting. And the compliance, because they're also saying that you're going to have whoever you're soliciting, you're going to have to keep records for your own compliance if somebody does opt out, and like Nick said before, and you don't honor that opt out. So that's interesting.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Josh? Because I was just looking on here too, Mike, while you guys were talking and listening to you, that I guess always, most brokerages or people may not know this, that when it comes to text messages, the CAN Spam Act for email applies exactly the same to text messaging. They have to have the option to unsubscribe. And at the bottom of my brokerage website through KB Core, it says specifically that if you click on this, that you're giving us the an authorization to contact you by text, email, or phone. But you also have the ability to opt out if you choose to do so. And it has to be clearly, because we're talking about misleading people and all that, it has to be clearly evident, obviously, what your message and what your purpose of contacting the person for is and who you are, but also that it's very plain to see where they can opt out of that. And I mean, there are real estate agents in this area, I'll tell you right now, that I'm on their list. I am subscribed, and somehow they must put me back on that list because I'm like, are you serious? I just subscribed yesterday, and now they're sending me emails again. I'm like, please stop sending me messages. And I've even emailed their administrator for their email, whoever manages or monitors it, and they still ignored it. So, you gotta make sure that, this is serious, everybody out there, because I mean, maybe people are letting this go right now, but down the road, it's not going to be you're going to get in trouble big time for this liability and cyber liability for sure.
Yeah, it's something that it's just privacy as a whole. It's it's on everyone's mind. So it's your personal information. So I always like to tell people, if there's a law that was created, someone somewhere got sued, and and that law was created for whatever reason. So I mean, I'm not surprised this is being tossed out right now, and all these regulations are being added. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely something that you want to comply with. It's not something that you want to take lightly and think, oh, okay, this person unsubscribed, but I'm going to still send them an email anyways. It's you definitely want to follow the laws and make sure that you're clean and you're following you're in compliance with the state and the state laws and the federal laws. You don't want to put your business at risk for whatever reason, just because you wanted to send an email or a text. It's you want to make sure that you're following the laws.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on what Josh said, I mean, the affordability for a small business for cyber insurance right now is very affordable. I mean, we were talking about that last week. Nick's new policy that he got was very affordable, for a business. We do see, and Josh can probably attest to this. I mean, when we're seeing loss ratios of, 400% in the cyber world, we're seeing those premiums go up in the next few years. So get on board now, get a policy while it's still affordable. And as those premiums go up, so is the risk. And every time I don't know how this happens. I don't know if it's karma. I don't know if it's just the way the world works. But every time we ever hear somebody in the insurance world that's, this is never going to happen to me, that's the first person it always happens to. I don't know how it works. It just always works out that way. It's almost like you're tempting fate at that point in time, if you believe in that. But it always happens that way. And don't think like the size of your business, how small you are or how big you are, that don't never think you're impervious to it, because it will always happen. And that's what businesses here like Blanchard Insurance, who work with Burns and Wilcox, and our partner coalition, to protect against these things. Because the last thing we want you to do, and people don't even factor that in. We were talking about this again last week, with Nick, where it's not just that it's the monetary savings, but it's the headache. And when you have a standalone policy with a company like Coalition, you can take that risk, you can take that claim and put it on the shoulders of somebody else. If you're having to handle that yourself, you might just bankrupt your own business, just because all of your time and all of your effort in trying to find the capital to pay down this claim will literally bankrupt you. And I don't think people take that into consideration, that a lot of insurance is designed to take care of a problem that you don't have the time to do. And if you have the time to go to court and have the time to hire attorneys and do all that, I mean, you have to think about the money. I mean, when you're not spending time working on your own business, I mean, you're losing money.
Right. And I love to tell that to people. If you have a claim, if you have a loss, if you have a breach, and you need to notify people and do all that stuff, where's that money coming from? If you're not getting the coverage, do you have a bank account, large enough somewhere to cover that stuff? Because if you're not getting the coverage, if you're not getting the policy, you're self-insuring, and that's going to get very expensive. And a lot of companies just don't realize how expensive it can get, and how many laws there are, like we've been mentioning, to follow and to comply with. So it's definitely something to have.
And it's not like personal injury either. I mean, like here in Florida, I mean, we all know about, Morgan and Dan Newland, and everybody's all so focused on personal injury, but people negate that. Every time there is an opportunity for these attorneys to find something else or find a new line of business that is profitable, and trust me, they are looking at it right now. They are doing initial studies to see, hey, is this cyber liability? Is it profitable for us? Can we get enough, complaints in? Can we get enough litigation involved? Can we take this to trial? Is it money? Is there money in this? Because like we said, I mean, they're not always good at practicing the law, but they're some of the best business people I've ever seen in my life. And once they find it out that it is a viable business for them to get into, kind of like a line of work, guess what? The billboards are going to go up telling people out there, hey, have you been a victim of identity theft? Have you been a victim of this? Did somebody, steal your information? Call us at 1-800-LAWYER. I mean, that's coming down the pipe. I mean, you will see that.
Yeah, and that's when you'll notice the rates just skyrocket as the losses pour in. I mean, like you mentioned right now, I have a policy that's coming up for renewal, and my underwriter's telling me that the rates have been changing every month, pretty much, just because of the amounts of losses that are coming in. So, like Mike mentioned, it's something to get into right now. If you don't have the coverage, don't wait. Get into that. Get your policy, and make sure that you have that right now.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys, and so we reached the end of our show today. But so Jason or Josh, sorry, when I always ask my guests, and then Mike, if you want to chime in after him, for Josh, what is your advice? I guess you can make it cyber liability related for the week or the weekend ahead for those listening and watching today.
Yeah, just look into, do some research. I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff on the internet you can look up and kind of look into costs. If you have a business and you're saving, if you have any kind of personal identifiable information that you save in your system, even if it's for 1 week, 1 day or whatever, you do have an exposure. Kind of look into, different state laws, look into notification costs, look into what other costs there are, look into phishing, different glossary of terms as far as what kind of losses there are, and kind of just do some research. I like to, just tell people, hey, research this, research that, and be, that way you can be cognizant of what's to come. If you get a weird text message, if you get a weird email, you can go ahead and just identify, hey, this is phishing or whatever, social engineering, and be familiar with all those terms, and then that way you can make a good choice into what kind of policy you want to get into, what kind of limits you think you need, and call someone like Mike and have him talk your way on what coverages you need and what limits.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just kind of tack on to what Josh said for my sage advice for the week, and I think I'll highlight one of the things he said, which is social engineering. I mean, it's getting more creative. I mean, I know we're all seeing it, whether it's in your Facebook feeds or your your Twitter account or your Instagram. I mean, that's a huge opportunity in a place that people kind of negate, where they will exploit you. And I mean, I look whether how much information you publish on Facebook. And I will say people that I see publish on, people put everything out there on Facebook. And when you're doing that, especially for business purposes, and I know a lot of businesses, we do it. Real estate industry does it. Everybody does it. They're using social media for business. Just don't think because it's under your personal account that you're not liable or you're not a target. Because just this week, I'm getting a friend requests, coming in. I've noticed an uptick in it over the past 12 months, where you're just got more fraud, and it's just coming from different IMs and different friend requests out there. And it's just people phishing. And the more data information they can get on you personally, the easier it is for them to mimic inside your own organization. And just like every other organization, we've had that. I could have, if I'm working for Nick, somebody could be Mike and talking to Nick, and Nick not even know it's Mike. So you're seeing a lot of that. So that's something to be very cognizant of, is the social engineering. And again, the risk transference of, don't buy insurance just because you think you have to use it. Buy it because you never want to have to use it, but you want to know it's there to take a huge problem and make it very small and make it go away. Get out of jail free card is how the Monopoly get out of jail free card. If I can describe insurance in any way, that is the perfect way to describe it.
I agree.
No. Same here. And my tip of the week is, like we talked about in the show, if somebody unsubscribes from your email or text messages, please do not add them back to your list and continue to harass them. Thank you for that. Okay. That's all I have to say about that. All right, guys. Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you for being on.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries, sir. And Mike, again, I'll see you guys next week. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, as well as Google and Spotify. And also, it'll be on YouTube as well, the video. So have a great weekend. Happy June, first Friday of the month. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you guys later.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
This has been Home to All, an all-inclusive real estate podcast. Find Nick on Facebook and Instagram at downtown.expert, and also his website, www.downtown.expert, or call or text him at 407-508-8809. Thanks for listening.
Don't spend hours or days looking for your new home. Let a downtown Central Florida expert guide you. I'm Nicholas Acosta, and I'm here to welcome you home. Being a Florida native, I know how exciting, stylish, and convenient the downtown lifestyle can be. From the nightlife scene in the heart of downtown to the natural beauty of Florida. I'm Nicholas Acosta, and I'm here to welcome you home.